So, you're a business owner dedicated to the significant and sustainable growth of both you and your business. Welcome to the Add a Zero podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Add a Zero podcast. I'm Jay Allen, your host and the founder of My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company. Today, I want to take an extract from Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, and ask, how much time are you spending working on the business as opposed to continually finding yourself working in the business? Now, don't get me wrong, as a business startup, it's typical that everything that we do starts and ends with you. You're the marketeer, you're the salesperson, you're responsible for delivering the product or service or making it or shipping it out, and you're the one that's doing the bookkeeping at the end of the week and keeping on touch with in touch with the money. And then it's rinse and repeat and do it all again the following day, the following week, the following month. And eventually we get to a point where we've built a team and we've now got other people in the business. And yet the majority of people I come across, even in quite established businesses, the business owner is still far too integral to the business and its evolution and development. I was working with a client until very recently. We've just literally stepped off the ladder in order for them to be able to just take a calm and a moment of presence to acknowledge as to the transitional change that we've enabled them over the last 6 or 7 months, really. The business owner, a team of 21, 22 staff in the business, asked me to be able to come in and support them during a period of transition. They were looking to be able to make some significant changes in the business, both in terms of direction of travel and some changes in the team dynamics, and wanted some external guidance and support to help them through that period of time to be able to mitigate any risk or offset that may occur. But what we quickly established when I first got there and we did the first assessment is that the owner themselves was still far too predominantly at the key and root of everything that the business did. And even though that there was a directorship team and there was a management team in place, that there were things being done and decisions being made, ultimately the end result was, if in doubt, go and ask X. And I won't mention his name, but for all intents and purposes, let's call him Ken and say, if I don't know what to do, I'll go and ask Ken. And what I subsequently found very, very quickly and early in the relationship is the frequency in which people would go and ask Ken. In actual fact, although Ken had created a directors team, there was an operations director and a finance director in the business, there was a management team in place that were responsible for marketing and sales and finance, and then there were people in the business and doing the day-to-day doing. Over a period of time, it had become far too easy that if anything didn't quite happen the way that we expected it or wanted it or planned it to be, rather than working towards, well, how do we overcome this as a challenge, it was far easiest to be able to just tap on the door and say, Ken, have you got 5 minutes? I just want to quickly ask you. And Ken felt compelled and obliged and quite delighted that people were still coming and knocking on his door, and he was able to help and contribute, and therefore he'd come out of his lair, as it were, and they'd sit around the planning table and he'd go through all of the things that he would do when he was running the business. And yet we got to a point where the whole purpose of being there was in order for the team to do all of that type of stuff, as if Ken wasn't there. We needed to be able to help extract him from the business. I often say the first thing that you should do when starting your business is define the date on which you're going to make yourself redundant. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about a P45 and a redundancy package. I'm talking about how do you make you redundant from the day-to-day delivery of the service. And until we do that, there is the risk that we become the bottleneck in the growth and development of the business. And it's only when we start to say, so who would do, as opposed to how will we do, that changes people's perspective. So today I want to talk to you about how much time could you afford to spend out of the business before it had any form of impact on the growth and development of the business and the plan that you've already put in place. For some, it might be a few weeks. You might be able to take an extended holiday and the business not suffer as a result of you being there. For others, it might be a few days and a long weekend to celebrate an anniversary. But I've also met people where it's a few hours, and on a couple of occasions, it's a matter of minutes, that if your phone's not ringing or available to answer, that problems are happening elsewhere in the business. And my challenge to you is, well, is that really the success that you're aiming to achieve for? Is that really what you've set out to be able to achieve? And it doesn't matter how many people you've got in the business or what the revenue turnover is, if you are still integral to it, then in actual fact, the chances are that rather than employing other people to do the work, then you've actually employed people to be on the peripheries to do the work that you need them to do. And there's a significant shift there. Certainly within eMyth, Gerber talks about the importance of being able to move from working in the business to working on the business. And my first questions to you early in this podcast is, so how much time per day, not per week or per month, or when can you fit it in, or if time allows, but how much time per day do you allocate to working on you and your business? How much of a priority is that? When it fits, on the way to work, I listen to a podcast, and then by the time I've driven home, I realise that I remember it, but I haven't done anything about what it said or shared with me. How much time are you actually allocating resource, time, effort, money to improving you and your role within the business? And then secondly, how much time do you spend working on the business to improve it? Let me give you another example. It might make things a little easier. I want you to, for a moment, just envisage your top VIP client. If you could only pick one person of all of those that you've invoiced in the last 60, 90 days, if you could only pick one of those, who would be your VIP client? The person that is investing a lot of money with you, who you're doing a lot of work with, who you enjoy working with, that they enjoy and get who you are and what you do. Who is the top of the list? If you could only select one company, who would that be? And then once you've identified who it is, I want you to spend a little bit of time considering as to why are they a VIP? What is it about them that steps them ahead of anybody and everything else? Again, you can only select one, so be really, really critical with regards to what it is that they do or that you do for them or with them that makes them that elusive 1% club. And then tell me a little bit more about, so what are the things that you're willing to do for that person because they're a VIP? And write it all down. Read it. Review it, share it with your team, identify if there's anything that you've missed or not considered. Make sure that this list is as compelling as possible, because what we're about to do next is going to be so revealing that it'll change the way you think about them and about you and about your business forever. So buckle in, because this is going to be quite a ride. Once you've got that compelling and quite comprehensive list of not just who they are, but why they are and why you've determined that they're a VIP. The things that make them stand out above anybody else and the things that you're willing and are currently doing for them as to why they are a VIP. And then go back through that list and tell me, how few of those are you doing for yourself? How few of the things that you've listed that you're doing for somebody else to support them in their business and their growth are you actually applying to your own business? Or, like the majority of business owners that I come across, do you tend to find that business development is late on a Friday afternoon, as long as we've got time before the weekend, once everybody else has been seen to? Don't get me wrong, we work at our best as a coaching company with conscientious business leaders, people that have got a conscience about doing good for good people. I love the expression, good for business is a business for good. And therefore, working with people with a conscience determines that they are typically the people that put customers first. And yet, if you're putting everybody else first, it's actually contraindicative to you growing as an individual, for you and your business to be growing further, because it automatically means that by putting everybody else first, you're putting yourself last. And that can't be good in anyone's book, particularly with a customer that might consider comparing you in a year's time or 6 months' time or next month or next week with your competitor. Because if you're putting yourself last and they're putting themselves anywhere but last, then very quickly they become a more compelling options to perhaps yourself and the development of you and your business. So what I'm going to invite you to consider, and it might be worthwhile writing this down because trust me, it really is quite transformational and very challenging to those conscientious people watching and listening today. I want you to learn to become more selfish. Yeah, that's what I said. I want you to learn to put you first. I want you to learn to put you first personally, and I want you to learn to put yourself first professionally. And once you've learned to do that, I then want you to learn to put your business first professionally before your VIP clients. Let me just quickly show you as to how we do that within My True North and then see if this is something that you could even consider within your own business. I like to swim. I get a lot out of swimming, not just about being in the pool and the cardiovascular stuff. I get a physical, I get an emotional, I get a spiritual thing from swimming. So I swim a lot. I like to be in the pool first thing in the morning. I almost have a competition with myself that regardless of how many other people have been queuing for waiting for the gym doors to unlock, as to how quickly I can undress and run to the pool, I like to be the one that breaks the water and be first into the pool. The first length I find is almost cathartic. It's almost washing away all of the thoughts and ideas and considerations and frustrations of life and of the previous day. I find the first length really calms me and helps me to become more present. The water isn't as warm as perhaps sitting around in a pool. It's very specifically a swimming pool where in order to be able to not shiver, you've got to continue to make motion. And I like that. It gives me that freshening of wakenness to make sure that each and every morning is fully present and alive. So the first length is all about acknowledging the moment and being there. And then you kick on the turn and you push off back again. And the second, third and fourth length is usually me doing my breath work in the morning, about being able to concentrate on my breathing and my heart rate, to be able to get a measure for moving from sedentary to exercise and that raised heart rate, to be able to start concentrating on the breathing in and of the holding and of the breathing out, and to acknowledge what it does for me as a body, in my body. And then eventually you start to move into repetition. Kick, turn, swim. Kick, turn, swim. And I'll do that for a mile 5 days a week. Once I've swam, quick shower, out for breakfast, and then into the office. And I'm in the office early because I've swam very early. And I'm thriving. I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm filled with endorphins. I've got lots of energy. I'm fired up and ready to go. And the next thing I do in the business is it says in my diary, it's blocked out, no one can answer the phones, no one can talk to me or interrupt me, the door is closed, everyone's under the instruction, only open the door if the building's on fire. Otherwise, I'm unobtainable. And the next 60 to 75 minutes is me spending time working on my business, implementing the things that we need to do for My True North. And on a day-to-day basis, every single morning, the first hour in business is my hour for my business. I've spent an hour working on personal development in the pool and clearing my mind. I now spend the next hour on my business and the things that we need to do to grow and develop and evolve to hit our targets and our deadlines. And once that's over and the door's open and I've got my first coffee, now it's time to be available for other people. And for the rest of the day, I will give my all, sometimes till late in the evening, to support each and every one of the clients that we work with. Happy in the knowledge that I've not compromised on our growth in order to be of service to others. And I can go home on a Friday evening happy, knowing that our clients are happy and we've delivered a good service because I've been at 100%. Meanwhile, I meet some other people in business that, although they tell me that they understand the importance of physical exercise and looking after yourself and the right diet and all of those things that we know to be true, the reality is that they turn up for work early and they quickly get bombarded by either phone calls or emails or what's been happening overnight or team members that have not come in or a whole series of firefighting activities. They're quickly drawn into becoming in the business and being in the busyness of business as a result of lack of planning, lack of discipline, lack of prevention. We are being reactive rather than proactive. And they'll work all the way through the day and things keep happening, and then it might get to evening or tea time or once the kids have gone to bed and it's right, I've now got to put a little bit of time back in to try and evolve me and my development or that of the business. It might be that we get to a Friday night or possibly even going in on a Saturday morning or a Sunday evening to be able to do all the stuff that we need to do in order to be able to grow. It's almost like a glass of water. And you know the old adage about we half pour the glass and we say, is it half empty or half full? I'm not referring to that. What I want you to envisage is a glass of water with just a little drop in the bottom. And if you are only able to give what's left to your own business, then despite giving 100% of who you are, if there's only a little sliver left, you're giving 100% of very little. And as a result, you're becoming more and more frustrated because you're having more and more effort and less impact. And it's only when we turn the tables, it's only when we learn to become far more selfish that we can become more selfless. By me showing up in the morning for me and doing my swim before work, my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health is fulfilled. My cuppeth is full. That when I turn up, I'm ready to be fired up to be able to spend a full hour working on my business. The marketing, the sales, the operations, the finance, the team, about driving the business forward, about measuring the impact of what we've done last month, about making those incremental updates, the tweaks, the amendments to be able to ensure that we remain on track. And once I've done that and I've got my first coffee in the hand, the door is then open, Calendly is then available, Zoom is on, and I'm able to be able to give 100% of me to each and every one of the clients that I serve, knowing that I've already served myself. And therefore, my questions to you today is, are you being reactive or are you more proactive? Are you still working in the business at the expense of working on the business. I've got one question for you. What would happen if tomorrow you didn't go back to work? And how long could you remain away without the business noticing or missing that you weren't there? If you'd like to learn more about how to be able to make yourself redundant, not in a P45 sense, like I've said at the beginning, but from a point of business reliability and reliance, that the business continues to grow and evolve and develop without you being present, that you can come back into the business and contribute to it from a place of want rather than need, then perhaps it's time we had a conversation. Because until then, the moment you stop, it's at risk of stopping also. God bless, take care. I look forward to speaking soon.
That's all for this episode. As always, we really thank you for listening and welcome your comments, thoughts, and suggestions. So please do drop us a line by emailing podcast@mytruenorth.biz. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you're listening to this through. And tell your colleagues and business network all about who we are. You've been listening to the Add a Zero podcast presented by Jay Allen. Brought to you in association with My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company.